France came into this World Cup looking almost impossible to stop. Not because they had one superstar, but because they had four. Kylian Mbappé, Ousmane Dembélé, Michael Olise, Bradley Barcola. 16 goals in 6 matches. Every opponent looked terrified before kickoff. On paper, this attack wasn't just the best in the tournament. It looked like one of the greatest collections of attacking talent international football has ever seen. So explain this. How does a team built to destroy everyone reach a World Cup semifinal and barely create a single real chance? Because what happened against Spain wasn't just a defeat. It was a complete football lesson. Spain controlled every second. They controlled the ball. They controlled the rhythm. And somehow, they made the most dangerous attack on the planet look completely harmless. But within minutes of the final whistle, the conversation changed. Suddenly France weren't talking about Spain's brilliance. They were talking about the referee, about FIFA's decision, about one penalty, and a series of calls they believed changed everything. Their manager publicly questioned whether the referee was even good enough to officiate a World Cup semifinal. The message was obvious. France didn't simply lose. France believed they had been let down. So, was this another FIFA controversy? Or was one of the tournament favorites simply searching for someone else to blame after getting completely outplayed? Because once you break the match down, the real story is far more embarrassing than most people realize. Before we even touch the referee, we need to talk about something France probably wishes nobody remembered. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Spain didn't steal this match. They completely owned it. The final score says 2-0. But if you actually watch those 90 minutes, it never felt that close. Spain controlled almost every phase of the game. They controlled possession. They controlled territory. They controlled the tempo. And maybe most importantly, they controlled France. Every time France tried to press, Spain simply played through them. Every time France wanted to attack, Spain already had numbers behind the ball. It looked less like a World Cup semifinal, and more like one team giving the other a football lesson. Rodri was the conductor. Every attack seemed to pass through him. Every dangerous transition somehow ended with the ball back at his feet. The Ballon d'Or winner looked completely back to his very best after missing months with injury. Alongside him, Fabien Ruiz kept dragging French midfielders out of position, which created even more space. And France never solved it. Then came the statistic that tells you absolutely everything. France arrived with the most feared attack in world football. Mbappé, Dembélé, Olise, Barcola. 16 goals in 6 matches. Yet against Spain, they barely created anything worth remembering. Mbappé's biggest moment? A free kick that sailed comfortably over the crossbar. That's it. Dembélé disappeared. Olise never found rhythm. Barcola spent more time chasing defenders than threatening them. Spain didn't stop one superstar. They disconnected the entire system. And that's a completely different level of defending. But here's where the entire conversation changed. Because France didn't want people talking about Rodri. They didn't want people talking about Spain's dominance. They wanted everyone talking about one decision. The penalty. If you only read social media after the match, you'd think this was the biggest robbery of the tournament. France certainly acted like it was. So, let's slow everything down. Let's watch exactly what happened. 19 minutes. Score, still 0-0. Spain swing a dangerous cross into the box. Lucas Digne turns, tries to hook the ball clear. But instead, catches Lamine Yamal's leg with his follow-through. Ivan Barton doesn't hesitate. Straight to the spot. Penalty. Oyarzabal steps up, sends the goalkeeper the wrong way, and suddenly, Spain have exactly the start they wanted. France never truly recovered. But after full time, Didier Deschamps had absolutely no interest in discussing what Spain had done. Instead, he walked straight into the press conference and immediately shifted the spotlight. Not onto Rodri. Not onto Spain. Not onto his own players. Onto the referee. He repeatedly questioned whether Ivan Barton was experienced enough to handle a World Cup semifinal. He hinted there were too many decisions against France. Without saying the words directly, he invited everybody watching to blame the official. And almost instantly, the internet did exactly that. Now comes the part that decides everything. Forget emotions. Forget social media. Forget whose side you're on. Just look at the laws of the game. Because if France are right, then this semifinal changes completely. But if they're wrong, then this entire outrage collapses. Watch the replay carefully. Digny swings to clear. Yamal gets there first. Digny's boot catches Yamal inside the penalty area. That's it. That's the whole incident. There isn't some hidden angle. There isn't another replay nobody has seen. The contact is real. The location is inside the box. And under FIFA's own interpretation, that's a penalty. Is it soft? Absolutely. Is it unfortunate? Definitely. But those are different questions. Football isn't refereed on sympathy. It's refereed on contact. And unfortunately for France, the contact is there. That's why something interesting happened after the match. France's own players never really argued that the decision was wrong. Maxime Lacua only said, maybe it deserved another look. Notice the wording. He didn't say, it wasn't a penalty. He simply wanted another review. That's a completely different argument. And here's the biggest problem for France. This happened 19 minutes into the match. At 0-0. Spain still had over 70 minutes left to prove they were the better team. And they did. They dominated possession. They controlled midfield. They created more chances. They never looked nervous. France didn't lose because of one whistle. France lost because they never found an answer. But then, something happened after the final whistle that completely changed this story. It wasn't another replay. It wasn't another refereeing decision. It came from inside France's own dressing room. Because while Didier Deschamps was standing at one microphone, questioning the referee, Kylian Mbappé was standing at another, quietly destroying that entire argument. France's captain didn't talk about conspiracies. He didn't talk about FIFA. He didn't even spend much time talking about the penalty. Instead, he looked directly at his own team. And what he said was far more uncomfortable. He admitted France lost control of midfield. He admitted Spain constantly had numerical superiority. He admitted Rodri and Fabian Ruiz were allowed far too much time on the ball. Then came the sentence nobody expected. Mbappé openly suggested France should have changed their tactical approach. Man-to-man. More pressure. More aggression. Less space. Think about what that actually means. This wasn't just frustration. This was France's captain, publicly questioning his manager's game plan, minutes after being eliminated from the World Cup. That's enormous. Elite dressing rooms almost never do this. Disagreements happen, but they usually stay behind closed doors. Mbappé didn't keep this one inside. He delivered it live, for the entire football world to hear. And suddenly, France weren't arguing with FIFA anymore. France were arguing with themselves. That's why Didier Deschamps' complaints about the referee suddenly sounded much smaller. Because while the manager was searching for external reasons, his own captain had already identified the real problem. Spain didn't outsmart the referee. Spain outsmarted France. One man accepted that reality. The other tried to escape it. And somehow, it got even stranger. Because just when it looked like France had settled on one explanation for the defeat, another voice completely changed the conversation again. Ryan Cherki, one of France's brightest young players. And his opinion couldn't have been more different. He looked at the same match, the same scoreboard, the same 90 minutes, and still insisted France were the better team. Think about that. Spain had dominated possession, controlled midfield, created the better chances, won comfortably. Yet inside France's own camp, people couldn't even agree on what had actually happened. That's when you realize this wasn't just disappointment. This was confusion. Complete confusion. Because listen to the dressing room now. The manager says, the referee cost us. The captain says, our tactics failed us. Another player says, "We were actually the better team anyway." 3 voices. 3 completely different stories. 1 defeat. That's not frustration. That's a dressing room trying to explain something. It still doesn't understand itself. Great teams lose. Every champion eventually does. But champions usually agree why they lost. France couldn't even agree on that. And honestly, that might be the most worrying thing of all. Here's the part almost nobody was talking about after the match. Because while millions of people were arguing over one penalty, Spain had already won this semifinal somewhere else entirely. Right here. The midfield. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. France arrived with perhaps the most frightening attack in international football. But football isn't won by collecting the biggest names. It's won by controlling the space between them. Spain understood that better than anyone. They didn't waste time trying to stop Mbappé after he received the ball. They made sure he almost never received it in the first place. That's a completely different level of defending. Every French attack had to travel through midfield. And every single time, Rodri was waiting. Every loose ball. Every second ball. Every passing lane. Every transition. Somehow, Spain already had an answer. France built a team from the front backwards. Spain built theirs from the middle outwards. And for 70, 80, 90 minutes, one philosophy completely destroyed the other. That's why Mbappé looked isolated. That's why Dembélé disappeared. That's why Alice barely influenced the game. It wasn't because they suddenly became worse footballers. It was because Spain quietly removed the entire supply line feeding them. The moment Rodri and Fabien Ruiz started dictating the tempo, France stopped playing their game and started surviving Spain's game. By then, the semifinal was already slipping away. And maybe that's the biggest lesson from this entire World Cup. Football has spent years convincing us that assembling the biggest names automatically creates the best team. Spain just shattered that illusion. France had more superstars. France had more headlines. France had more hype. But Spain had something much harder to build. An identity. Every player knew exactly where to be. Exactly when to press. Exactly when to pass. Exactly when to slow the game down. France looked like 11 brilliant footballers. Spain looked like one brilliant football team. And in the biggest match of France's tournament, that difference was enormous. Which brings us back to Didier Deschamps. Because history will probably remember him as one of France's greatest managers. A World Cup winner. A World Cup finalist. 2 European Championship finals. An incredible 14-year reign. But football can be brutally cruel. Sometimes, people don't remember how you build your legacy. They remember how it ended. And if this really was Deschamps' final World Cup, it didn't end with France being robbed. It ended with France being outplayed. Completely. Spain now move one step away from another World Cup, playing the best football of anyone left in the tournament. France head into the third-place playoff, carrying far more questions than answers. About their tactics. About their balance. About their future. And maybe, about whether blaming the referees simply distracted everyone from the real reason they lost. Because when the emotions disappear, when the arguments settle, when people watch the semifinal again 5 years from now, they probably won't remember the penalty. They'll remember one thing. Spain were simply the better football team. But here's the question I want to leave you with. Did France genuinely have a case against the referee? Or did one of the most talented teams we've ever seen simply get exposed by a better system? I'm genuinely interested to hear both sides. Let me know your opinion below. And if England somehow stop Argentina tomorrow, we might be about to witness one of the greatest World Cup finals in modern history.